Welcome to the Sisters in Service podcast. My name is Kat Corchado, also known as the voice connecting women veterans nationwide. This podcast is for anyone connected with the military, from veterans, male and female, military spouses, military brats, even parents who may have children who are in the military. As an Air Force veteran, I understand the trials and triumphs that women veterans go through in service and out of service. And so I wanted to find a way that I could put it out there into the airwaves and let everyone know what we're going through and find a way and a solution to what's happening to us in the service. I also like to highlight these women who are business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're bosses in their business. And so I hope that you will follow me, you will share, and you will subscribe to this podcast, which comes out every week on Tuesdays. And as always, please stay safe, take care of each other until next time. And it's never too late to start your impossible. Welcome, Sisters in Service, to another episode of our podcast. And you know me, I'm Kat Corchado. And my guest today is Lynn Geiser. And Lynn is an Army veteran. She's president of the Hope4Veterans 501c3. But I really wanted to speak to her about being a single parent in the military with a special needs child for this segment. So as you guys know, I've been doing several segments on this because it was just something that was close to my heart when I heard someone else speaking about it who was not a veteran. And it made me start thinking about how military families are dealing with the situation. So welcome, Lynn.
Well, thank you for inviting me and being able to tell the story to help other women veterans.
Of course, I just think it's very important to, even though I don't have a special needs child, but it's important for me to learn and to be able to tell this story so that other people listening in can hear your story, and whether they're active duty or veteran, understand that they weren't alone in this journey. So I always ask my veterans this question: did you pick the Army or did the Army pick you?
Well, I was actually in high school at the time and they came out, and I would say the Army picked me because if it would have been Air Force coming in, I probably would have signed up for the Air Force. That's what we always say on the thing. I was like, oh, I wanted to fly planes, but I was working on that area, but never got to be a flight attendant or flight pilot. But yeah, no, the Army picked me, and I always say I use my feet.
All right. So Lynn, did you go under the dreaded general, or what was your job in the military?
Well, when I first started, because I did it a different way than most people do. Most people go in and they go active duty immediately. I actually went in, served the 93 to 94 while I was in high school. And then I went into National Guard for 6 years. And during that 6 years, I was an 88 Mike. And I went from E1 to E4 through the National Guard. And then something was missing. But I also I was a single mom at the time too. So when I got in and I said I just got to do it. So finally, I was given the opportunity to hand the child over to the father because he had an opportunity, and I went active duty in 2000, and I was still an 88 Mike, and I served actually when I went in, I was actually a school oriented, which they consider it. You don't do as much wartime because you're dealing with the Rangers and the E5s, E4s in each training battalion. And so I was an 88 Mike for my whole career.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Because I was Air Force, please explain what an 88 Mike is.
Oh, that's no problem. 88 Mike, the short term is a truck driver. The longer term is transportation, supporting schools through transportation, the nicer way of saying it.
Got it. Because as an Air Force person, I'm like, okay, that sounds really cool. 88 Mike. It just sounds like 88 Mike, come back.
Yeah, yes, we drove. When you see a woman and you're a 100 pound woman driving a semi, people are like, "Oh, really?" And then we trained. It was so fun, interesting because the young men that were coming in did not know how to drive standards, and so I was one of the teachers
Oh,
to show
wow.
them how to do stick. And these are old
Oh,
trucks.
yeah. The ones that stick, the gears stick. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember my son was getting ready to drive, and I don't know if y'all even remember, if you're even old enough to remember, it was a Chevrolet Chevette. My brother called it a
Mm.
puddle jumper. And my son was getting ready to learn how to drive. And I said, you're going to drive on a stick. Okay.
Hmm.
Because if you can drive this, you can drive anything. And he was so angry with me for so long. And a few years ago, he's now in his 40s, and he said, I'm so glad you taught me how to do that. I said, see, I knew you would appreciate me at some point in
Hmm.
time for doing that.
And that
So,
my first car was the movie Wayne's World. That was my first car too.
oh,
The old
wow.
Shelby's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had never learned how to shift gears. And the guy who sold me the car took me out back of the dealership and showed me how to shift. I didn't even know how to do it. I know. It was just, yeah, I was scared for so long. And then it was like, oh, why was I so scared? So you're in the military, and then all of a sudden, when do you get your son?
Because I did the 6 years National Guard, I had my son the whole time. I was a single parent during that process, and I knew something was missing. So I had an opportunity to give the child to the father of the son. And so I thought at that moment it was the right thing to do, even though he didn't have a lot of time with him. So I did that. I went in 2000, and I spent 2000 to 2000, the early years of 2003. For 2 years, I fought the attorneys to get custody back because it was my second enlistment, and they didn't know that. So it considered a second enlistment, you could have your children. And so I got, the only reason why I got custody is the stepmother abused him. And so I emergency went and got and picked him up. And the unit was not happy at all because my job shifted. My ability to be out in the field 24/7 shifted. And I became an excellent soldier to a soldier that can't do anything overnight because my son was autistic.
So he has autism and ADHD, correct?
Yes. And back in those days, they didn't really know the
What it
statistics.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was autistic. He is high functioning. So if you give him math and science, he was an expert at it. He was a student on that piece of it. But if it was the behaviors that really, and he needed special treatment, and he was in the special school, not special school, but special thing, IEPs, what they say these days.
Right.
So anything that way.
So do you think that the military, the Army in particular, labeled you once you became a single parent?
Oh, yeah. It was a target. The first thing they said was, where's your family care plan? I didn't even get him here yet. Where's your family care plan? If you don't have a family care plan, you're getting kicked out. That was the first thing they said to me.
That's awful.
Yeah. There was a lot of other things going on. Like I had because I spent 3 years in the field. I mean, can you imagine camping 24/7? The only time you come out would be to take a shower and maybe have a good meal. Most of the time I spent in the field was a lot of junk food and a whole bunch of stuff. But in that process, I served my time, 3 years, almost 3 years, hanging out with the Ranger Battalion, hanging out with Enoch, BNOC, officer schools, any of the schools that needed us, and we were rotating lots. I had my family as more Rangers than it was my unit. So when I came back and I had to come out of the field, they didn't even really know who I was. The only person that knew who I was the platoon sergeant because he had to work with me. The lieutenants, the commanders, anything higher up had no idea who I was even. For 3 years I was there.
So they pretty much made an assumption. They just assumed that you couldn't do your job because you're a single parent. And the only reason I say that is because I came into the military as a single parent way back in the day. So 1979, yes, I said it.
Mm.
I came in under delayed enlistment. And I believe in January of 1980, because I didn't become active until March, they had stopped single parents from coming in without the family
Yep.
care plan. And I remember going to boot camp and we're signing all this, filling out all this paperwork. And my TI, my training instructor, calls me in and he goes, "How did you get in the service with a dependent?" I was like, "I don't know. Y'all let me in. I don't know what to tell you." And it was because of that. And I thought, holy crap. But there was a stigma. And so when I first went in, they were like, "Oh, here we go. We got a single parent." And it was single parents were lazy. Single parents couldn't do their
Yep.
job. They were never here because their kid was always sick. So
Yep.
I had to prove that I could not only do the job, but be able to, if there was something due, it was in their basket early, that there weren't any issues. So that when there was an issue, i.e. my son had chickenpox and I hadn't, which is a big red flag, that when I needed time off, that they didn't have a problem with it. And I had really good supervisors who, when I had a PCS, they would call my follow-on base and my supervisor and say, "You're getting a single parent, but she's good to go. Don't worry about her. She's got everything together." But I know as a single parent that it's hard. Number one, it's hard. It's hard being a parent, number one. Number two, the load is doubled because you're a single parent. And then also tripled because you're having to deal with the prerequisites of your job. And then you're a single parent, and then you're a soldier, et cetera, et cetera. So I always tell people that, I always had a team with me, and my team was me, myself, and I. So you never get that time off. What was that like for you? You've got a child who's autistic, ADHD. You have your commander or supervisors on your back because they feel as though they assume that you can't do the job, and being a single parent. How did that ever collide? Like it all just, it was a big old pile sandwich, if you know what I mean.
I think in the end it did. I think, when you to go back a little bit, you mentioned when you got in, I laughed because when I first got in the National Guard also, when I got pregnant, they sent me home for 9 months. They never told me to come in, and I got paid for it. This was the National Guard.
Oh my gosh.
So this was way before the active duty. And when you said, "How did you get in with the child?" Well, they considered that a second enlistment. And so for me to get in, I did give custody to the father of the child. That was a wrongdoing in the end. But because in the end, my son was because of his autism and ADHD, before I got him, while he was with his father for the year to 2 years, he was placed in inpatient care twice because he could not handle him. And one of them was the week of 4th of July. So that was a stigma. So now you got the trauma that he faced. And then he got abused. So I finally got custody of him after fighting 2 years with the attorneys. So I've got that piece of it. Being in the field for 3 years, my mental health and my physical, to this day, I'm still fighting to this physical and mental health, the eating habit issues, to this day. I didn't ever put it together until 10 years later. But as far as a child, when I got custody of him, when I was on post and I put him on post, we had a special teacher. And because of that special teacher, she would actually watch him if I had an emergency. And it was interesting because it was the support. We did have a home child care provider also, but I did spend a lot of times. And at the end of my 2003 to 2004 was the time that I got red flagged. I had, within a few month process, I had so many Article 15s for talking back to an officer, for supposedly not having a family care plan in the beginning, even though I had it 24/7. They couldn't go after me for that, so they went after me for other things. So there was a lot of issues as soon as that I got custody of the child, because I was placed out of the field, and the main purpose for that unit was being placed in the field. Yes, and they did everything in their powers to flag me, to like you say, you're a mother, you can't do anything anymore. There was so much, even as a unit, when I started getting out of the field, we had so many, what do they used to call them, drills?
Yes.
Drills that they would lockdown drills. We had one every 2 weeks, and the families would be stuck in the unit for 8 to 10 hours at a time with no food. And it was just things like that the unit, when I got to the point at the end of my time frame in 2004, it was, besides having an autistic son who I was struggling with, because not just because of that, because of everything he did behavioral wise, then also fighting the unit, it was a lot of pieces to the puzzle that, and I even put myself on Germany orders that the unit stopped because they didn't know who I was. And it took me 4.5 to 5 months to get the unit, to get my orders, because he was a special child. We needed to be, it was Dexheim, Germany, and he had to be near a hospital. He needed to be near medical attention. They also found out I needed that too, in the end, but the orders were stopped and I was kicked out of the military.
So let me go back a little bit. How soon after the birth of your child did you know that he was autistic and had ADHD? At what age was your child before you realized that this was an issue?
Right around the time that I got him from the military. It was, I was able to handle him without medication and whatever the case may be. As soon as the father received custody of him, he started medicating him. He started putting him inpatient. And then that's when he was completely diagnosed by a doctor. And then I got custody of him from that. So it was more between, starting the age of probably 5-ish. That was the oldest one that I have today. The younger one, we do have another one who was diagnosed very early, because we could tell with his behaviors immediately when he was before school started.
So all this is happening, and yet you have no one on your side who's rallying for you, like fighting that fight for you.
No, because what had happened is I spent most of my time in the field. So the only people that really knew me were the Ranger Battalion, the officer school. Officer school wasn't as much a connection. Ranger Battalion, because we spent a lot of time there. We were like their partners. They were my sister, brother, whatever it was. They called me their sister. That was the only place that really, really felt connected when I was in. And that was actually the time also 9/11 hit. I was there at that same time. I even got shingles in the field with the Ranger.
Oh my God.
I spent the nights there at the Ranger Battalion.
And how long were you guys out there camping?
We spent 45, 50 days with them all through the whole process.
Lord. The only thing that I want to do close to camping, I think it's called glamping. That's right up my alley.
No,
I wouldn't have made it in the Army. I'm just going to put it out there. I am fessing up. I wouldn't have made it, which is why I'm glad I went Air Force. They call it Chair Force, and yes, it is. And I'm happy about it.
Well, I don't regret going in because of the experience, because I got to hang from helicopters. We got to play fun games. There is always the negative pieces to it too, that, I found out many, many years later that the shingles that I did receive caused the fibromyalgia and the nerve damage. And to this day, autoimmune. And I just got a testing just this week, and it's showing that I need some help. Mm-hmm. But to this day, my kid is 25 years old and still needs help.
Yeah.
So, but while I was in the military, the support system that I had was, my unit did not have my back. When you say I got your 6, that makes me chills, because they were all against me. You. No, they took my phone away. They refused to let me have an attorney. There was so much little pieces to it. It was so much disrespect. I mean, I could probably write a book on how much disrespect. I got out, even with my family care plan, even with the military and how much my son needed help, they got me out on a dishonorable discharge.
Oh my goodness.
With my medical discharge. I fought it. I got upgradable and stuff like that, but that's why I do what I do today. It's because of my experience with my child. It's my experience because of the military. Maybe I would take some things back when some people say, well, I wouldn't take anything back, but I would take some things back. I think if I went in today, I think I'd be a stronger woman and I would have been able to fight better, fight what I knew today.
I was going to ask you, looking back, because, hindsight is 2020. I was going to ask you if there was anything you would have done different, or could you? Sometimes the situation is the situation and there's nothing you can do about it. So looking back on that situation, is there something you would have done differently, or could you have done anything differently?
With the situation I was in, the lieutenant had I literally got to the point where I was faced with the battalion commander of the post. That's how high I went. And by then I was already angry with the world. Nobody had my back. I was already put on extra duty. And even I had a son. They said if I didn't have my son, they threatened me many times. If I did not have my son there, they would have put me in jail. That's how detailed. It was a threat because they had nothing to go against it. And they dropped, many years later, 15 years later, they dropped every charge except for one. And I can't fight that charge. But that was prior to the mental health. But also I was sexually assaulted in 2003 before I got my custody of my child. It was from the platoon sergeant that I trusted. And to this day, as a counselor, any counselor I see, the trust, and even the counselor said the same thing, the trust is a major issue for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's just, I don't even know what to say to that, because when you feel like, and I've felt like that at times, when you feel like you're just all alone and nobody is there to help you. It's just you, and you have to deal with that. And have you thought of, I've heard of stories that at certain points, depending on what happened, that you could get your dishonorable discharge upgraded. Have you tried doing that?
Yeah, it is. What had happened is, because I went National Guard first, I have an honorable discharge from that. Then I went, and this is what saved me. I spent 3+ years at this, I'll say Fort Benning. Fort Benning's where I was, at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I spent 3 years. I re-enlisted because I was in school. And they asked me if I wanted to extend because of the school piece, they would give me more schooling. So I said, okay, I'll re-enlist. So I was supposed to do 6 years there. And those 3 years I served were honorable. Then I served the 4th year. I got into my 4th year, and that 4th year went way downhill very fast. Red tape, issues with my son, medical. I was on a medical board, and they stopped it. The only way to stop it is Article 15s. And these are things like talking back to an officer, all these things. And 15 years later, they finally dismissed it. 15 years.
Wow.
If when I got out 2 years later, I fought and I finally got my upgrade. I went from a dishonorable, the last one, because I have an honorable, I have 2 honorables, and I have a dishonorable. And that dishonorable, it was a lot of fighting for the 911 GI Bill, a lot of fighting for anything I had. I had to prove who I was, and I had to prove the day I got out. I still had to prove to this day. I still have to prove. And and that's why these women, not to go out of it, but these women are not being heard, and they're not, even with the VA system, but we won't go into too much detail on that one. But
yeah, this could be a 2-hour podcast.
Yeah. I could see why and this is why, I guess you can say this is why I did what I do, because I don't want anybody to feel the way I felt. And that was the worst time in my life. And I got out in September 24th, 2004, single mom, homeless, sleeping on the streets. Even when I got out, at first I transferred to Columbus, which is right outside the gate. And I couldn't do it because the school districts, it's interesting how the military school districts were so high compared to the area I was in, Columbus, Georgia, where it was 3 to 4 years difference. It was
Mm.
so low income, so behind school district. So we eventually moved back to Wisconsin where I was originally, and I became homeless for a while. I did three years of trying to find a job, just a whole bunch of stuff. And to this day, I feel guilty because after I got out being homeless, I still wasn't a good mom. And I'm being honest with people. I had a babysitter the whole time. I was going to school full time. I was doing 2 jobs full time just to survive. And
Absolutely. It's
to that time,
hard.
it is. And I lost my identity. I wanted to serve 20 years. I wanted to be a warrant officer. And there's a joke between that because before this all hit, I did my paperwork for warrant officer school. I got 2 recommendations. I was going through my security clearance, and that was a high-tech security clearance. I got my security clearance the day I found out I was getting discharged.
So you were talking about the honorable discharges versus the dishonorable. Which one were they looking at? Because to me, you have dishonorable, you got honorable, you have honorable. And they totally looked at that. They didn't look at the honorable at all.
No. They gave me credit for some of the GI Bill, but for the GI Bill itself, they gave me credit, but then they took it back, most of it. They're like, we're going to give you 100%. But when I went through the schooling and got all of it paid,
they're like, oops, sorry.
Here, you owe $5,000. You owe $6,000. Put me into a debit.
Oh
God. And I fought and couldn't do anything with it. So I did a lot of fighting after I got out.
Right. So let's talk a little bit. You've mentioned a little bit about resources. What, if any, resources were available to you at that time? Or did you even have a chance to look into these resources for your child?
When I got out, when I was in the military, I had great resources. In the general idea, I had the childcare, whatever. When I became homeless, of course, it's survival. It's the survival fittest, whatever. Got out, and I spent about 3.5 years, at least 3.5 years, fighting to survive, fighting to pay the bills, fighting to just live. And at that time, their father was still in the picture, so we did have some counseling pieces to it, but. For me, I wanted nothing to do with the military. Nothing to do with the military. It took me 15 years of fighting just to be part of it again. And that started becoming a counselor. That's where I started becoming part of it again. But yeah, no, for me, I really didn't care to even look for resources because I was just barely surviving, and that was not the top of the chain. It was you got food, and for any family that is homeless, the food and security, safety is first.
Absolutely. So. I was thinking back that I think my son, they would have probably said he was ADHD because he was super hyperactive. But
back in those days, they don't say autism.
Yeah, he was just, this child did not take naps. This child was up from 6 a.m. and went to bed at 10 p.m. and would be just as energetic the next day. And someone had mentioned back in the day, they used to say, oh, what about Ritalin? But he was at an age then when he was pretty much controlling it. When I look back now, I'm glad that I didn't go that route because he had to learn how to control whatever it is he learned how to control it himself. And so I'm so glad that I didn't go I'm so anti-medication, not just for me,
Yes.
Number one, I hate taking pills. So that's, that's probably
I'm a big
with
factor
that.
on that one.
But I just want to say that what kind of advice would you give to that woman, when you were going through that? What kind of advice would you give her right now?
While it was in or out?
Yes.
There's two different.
No pressure.
I know. Well, when you talk about Ritalin, because of the father actually started putting him on that stuff, it really pushed him behind. He was the shortest in his class for years, And he took himself off of it when he became a junior, senior, and we didn't even know it. And he grew 12 inches overnight.
Oh my gosh.
And so he with I don't know if it was Ritalin or whatever the case may be, but he cannot function without some kind of, I want to say, behavioral drug, and it's not always prescribed.
Right.
So he deals with that a lot, right? Even to this day, he can't even work a job without something inside his system.
Yes.
So it's a little bit struggle on that end, but and so we wanted to talk about, what I would tell myself if it's
right.
in,
What would you, so let's do it in two different ways. You're talking to the younger you while you're in the military. What would you tell her about strength, about you're going to get through this? And also that person that got out and found out she had nothing. She was homeless. She was trying to put two and two together and coming up with zero. So both instances for anyone that might be listening.
I think today, because of what I do, it kind of helps. I mean, because most people do not like to seek out help. I think for even being in active duty, I did seek a lot while as active duty. I seeked attorney, I seeked a counselor, and it was to the point that there was nothing I could do because you're fighting the active duty military. So that, and then when I got out in the general idea, the resources, I was surviving. So it was kind of another piece of it. But I guess if I had to go backwards, I guess that's the easy way of saying it. I would have probably seen more of my options if I would have, because I didn't have all the education.
Right.
I needed more of the options. When I got out of the military, they didn't give me any resources. They said, here's one piece of paper, get it signed and get the heck out. That's exactly what, I have a piece of paper from the top battalion commander telling me never to come back on my post again. Literally signed.
So much for transition, right?
Oh yeah. No. There was no transitioning. Kick out of the place, and that was it. I mean,
wow.
To this point, my name has changed now. But to this point, I think I've been back on Fort Benning because my name has changed. But that was back in those days, and I believe, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but I ended up taking up a few jobs afterwards, the DOD positions, and I did not realize this until I walked into a room with this general. And we had to work. I never worked with this guy before in long time, right? Because it was always a DOD. You never really seen these high ranking people unless it's a major meeting. Well, I walked into this office one time, and this guy goes, "I know you," and I said, I had that really bad feeling about this guy, and I walked in, and I did not know why I knew this guy, whatever the case may be. I went back to my paperwork, and I not even realize I had it. 15-page paper, how incompetent, how they didn't know who I was, but I was on administrative board. So they had to go against me. My whole unit went against me, told me I was a bad soldier. I would not fight with her, or whatever the case may be. So long story short, one of the gentlemen that I had to work with in the end, many, many years later, I realized that he was one of those individuals.
No.
What a coincidence, right? I did not know internally why, but I felt a gut feeling like I went back into time, and since then I went back into time when I had to do my claims, open my claims, because it was like 30%, 50% or whatever. I was on a medical board, and if I would have gotten out on a medical board, I would have been 30% and I would have gotten TRICARE. They used it against me and never received TRICARE because they kicked me out. So to this day, I still had that guilt feeling that I should have gotten it. But I can't go backwards on this. We've tried to fighting. We fought. I got a general discharge. That's as close as I'm going to get on that one. We've fought for years.
But look at you now, though. I mean, that's a strong individual. I mean, just listening to your story, there were so many times where you could have just said, yeah, done and done. But there's something about being a single parent, and tell me if you're on point with this too, is that it's not about you anymore. You are fighting, you are kicking, you are screaming, you are doing all of this stuff because of that child.
Yeah,
You're
that's why I
doing
went back
all
to
this
Wisconsin.
stuff because this
Yep.
child has no one else but you. So you're doing
Yes.
everything you can within your means. It may be out, I don't know, but to make sure that this child's taken care of. You know what I mean? Were you like that too?
Oh yes. When I was when I was even at the time when I had him, it was a fight. It wasn't a fight about me anymore. But I was getting out, and regardless, I fought. But it was all about him. It was all about what I needed to do. That's why we did not stay in Georgia. We finally went back because it was insurance that needed to be put back on him. It wasn't my insurance; it was the father. So I had to face that. But yes, it was all about him and his needs, and it was for that for years. I did not do self-care for myself
Oh,
until
what's that?
15 years ago. And that's why
Self
we in
what?
corporate self-care. Yeah, I know. I didn't know how to calm down. I didn't know
Because you're
what
in this
because
constant fight or flight. You're
yes,
waiting
and
for the next thing to happen so that you can be at least in line with it. You can't get ahead of it, but I know exactly what you're talking about, because you're just waiting and you can't do that, you're breathing, you have such shallow breathing all the time because you're afraid to relax. Oh, girl.
yeah,
But you know
yeah.
what? It makes you such a strong individual. Like I didn't realize it until years later that,
Yeah.
I'm going to say it. I'm a badass. I am a badass. I can say that now with,
But I am good enough.
you are enough. Exactly.
Yes.
You are the president of Hope for Veterans. Tell us real quick about your why behind it and who is Hope for Veterans for?
Why? Why? Because I went through the journey. I fought. I've done everything from homelessness to trying to find the resources 15 years later to try to survive, to have that sister support. So, and I know how much it is with the woven too, because they got me into that journey. The mission continues, and a woven got me into that journey of where I am today. But yeah, no, the fight. I fought for claims. I fought for VA. I fought for all this stuff. And I know when I moved to Florida, being the second to third largest state from Wisconsin, it was a total different piece. When I moved to Florida, God told me I needed to be here for a reason. And I wasn't too sure if I wanted to transfer the nonprofit because it was started in Wisconsin. And I just knew to this day, we, as Hope for Veterans, we do sister support. We find these women that need it. We provide the sister support. And it's providing these small events, small, whatever they need, financial, whatever the case may be, because they don't want to come out. They don't want to come out and seek the help. So when we do that, we just have those small groups. They start to come out and they start to trust. That is, and like I said earlier, trust is a big factor
It's
in many of
huge.
our women. And so as soon as that trust factor comes in, that's when they start to tell you the story that I'm struggling with this, the story that I'm struggling with that. So last year we restructured everything. And so our goal is to find these women that need it, to provide the peer-to-peer sister support and the small groups and the therapeutic art. We're just starting that. And then to provide them the benefits they deserve.
I love
And
that.
because of my journey.
Yeah. Yeah, there's usually a story behind these, and you have one hell of a story. So, Lynn, I want to tell you, thank you so much for being here today and telling your story. Where can people find you if they need to reach out to you?
Well, personally or website or the
whichever one works best for you.
Well, most of the people I always just reach out to the Hope for Veterans, which is the www.hope4Veterans.org. We just updated the website. We have amazing things going on. We're just starting this meet and greet women. We're more based in Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Florida area. This meet and greet therapeutic art where it just helps you. You see a counselor, you can talk to them, but also doing that unconscious piece.
Yes.
And as I've seen how much it's improved and helped our women. So we are actually going along with Cohen Veterans Network right now, and we are starting in August for that. So it's going to be amazing to going into the gala, which we nominate our women veterans and our spouses, and giving back to them to be heard and be recognized. So that is our big goal for the year.
Well, I love what you're doing, girl. Keep up the good work.
You're amazing too, girl.
And
I know how much you do with that moving.
Ooh, yeah, it's a load sometimes. It's a load, but it's so worth it, to meet other women veterans and understand where they are and to see them open up it's like a flower, just they bloom.
It is bloom.
But I want to thank you again for being here. I know you have to go, but for all my listeners, as always, I'm going to say, please stay safe, take care of each other. Until next time, and always, it's never too late to start your impossible.